Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
You know what? I don't really care about how many points we scored in the last 4 games. I'm only worried about how many we score in the next game. All right, so I don't have any feeling about how many points we scored in the last 4 games or 5 games or however many SEC games we played. I'm really worried about how many we score in the next game and how we stop the next team that we play.
Makes sense to me. If you think about it, doesn't really matter what you did in the last game. It's all about the next game for Nick Saban. It's all about the next TITV for us. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into the program presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. And once again tonight, you know, football season gets here, Rod, and I just pick up the pounds every year. I don't know why. I guess because I'm just working all the time. But you know what? Diet Pepsi gives me all that great Pepsi taste. But none of the calories, none of the sugar. Diet Pepsi. Pick it up the next time you're at your local grocery store or convenience store. Remember, Pepsi is a Southern original. Well, last Saturday, Rod, the Crimson Tide rolled, and I mean rolled, to a 66-3 victory against Ole Miss. Now, the last time Alabama scored that many points was back in 1979 against Vanderbilt, and that score was also 66-3. But the Alabama offense got off to a hot start against the Rebels and never let off the accelerator, thanks in large part also to the fact that the defense forced 2 turnovers and had 5 sacks. After the game, Bama players said Coach Saban acknowledged their performance but said more work still needs to be done.
He was just telling us not to get complacent, man. You know, we put up 66 points against our opponent, which is pretty good. But he told us to keep doing that, continue to keep getting better each and every day, and get ready for next week.
You know, he just kind of told us, like he does every week, it was a good win, but it doesn't really define us as a team. You know, we have to keep doing this every single week. There's still things that we should improve on, things that we didn't do as well as we wanted to, but you know, for the most part, we executed well and we were able to get a big win.
Well, Rodney, it was an outstanding performance against an Ole Miss team that had beaten Alabama 2 of the last 3, led 24-3 last year in Oxford before Alabama came back to win 48-43. But on Saturday night, I'm going to let you just give us your analysis, but offense, thumbs up. Defense, thumbs up. Kicking game, thumbs up. Bama rolled.
Domination. I mean, wow. I mean, what a turnaround. I mean, last year when it was 24-3 and Alabama ended up winning that game, what a shootout that was, and then who would have expected it would be a 66-3 this year? I really didn't expect 66-3. I don't know about you, Gary, but you know, like you said, it was complete domination by Alabama. And you know what? I really think, Gary, with all the issues that Ole Miss has, I think if you looked at the body language of the players once it got to be about 14-0, it almost looked like they quit.
You know, I hate to say anybody quit, but let's put it this way. They were looking forward to getting back on the bus and getting out of Tuscaloosa. And, you know, Rodney, again, I don't want to try to have to put this into historical context, but these are the kind of whippings we've seen the last 2 weeks to start SEC play, 59-0 at Vanderbilt, 66-3 against Ole Miss and Tuscaloosa, that you're not supposed to be seeing in this day and age with all the quote-unquote parity and the 85 scholarships per team. These are scores that we're accustomed to seeing back in the day, but Alabama, I know it's just 2 games, but my goodness, Rodney, you know, in the SEC, you usually just will take a win of any kind. And these are complete beatdowns. Yeah,
they really are. And again, when you look at Alabama, obviously, you know, the injuries defensively that they had early, some of the guys that have come back, Anthony Jennings, Rashawn Evans, I think that's been big. I think also the development of some of the younger players that got opportunities to play, this young defensive line, some of those guys like Raekwon Davis, I think he's come around significantly. So, again, I think you see the defense doing an outstanding job. Levi Wallace right there with the interception. What a job he's done at that cornerback spot over there on the left side, just kind of shutting things down, making big plays, and all the weapons offensively. I mean, when you look at those weapons offensively, with the offensive line now really starting to kind of pick it up a notch, played really well the last 2 weeks, I mean, this Alabama offense is going to be really difficult to stop.
And it doesn't seem to matter if it's the first team, second team. They go to the subs, and they come in.
And they're not turning the ball over.
No turnovers. That is absolutely phenomenal. Only team in the conference that can say that. Speaking of that defense, guys, stepping up real quickly before we move on. The defense has been tested this year with injuries, and now the latest to Sean Hand. Thankfully, it's just an MCL sprain, but he's more than likely not going to be able to play for a couple of weeks, and guys are going to have to step up again.
Well, yeah, and I think in the long run, even though you hate to see Deshaun Hand, not have the opportunity to play the next few weeks, I think it's great that you do have a chance to maybe develop guys. Quinnen Williams play more. Some of the other guys, Jamar King played some in the game.
Maybe.
LeBron Ray played some in the game the other night. So, again, he's a true freshman. So you will develop depth due to that. But, you certainly do hate that Deshaun's going to miss a few games his senior year.
Well, Rod, on top of the record-breaking night against Ole Miss, Alabama senior quarterback Levi Wallace was honored with his first SEC recognition of his career following his performance against the Rebels. Wallace had 2 picks and scored his first defensive touchdown of his career, and also the first of the season for Alabama. Rodney Wallace walked on to the Crimson Tide team out of Huntsville. You walk on, you're just hoping to get the dress, and here he is a few years later. Last year played some, now a starter and the SEC Defensive Player of the Week. How impressed have you been by what you've seen from this guy?
I mean, what a job he's done. Listen, I tell you, he was put in a situation last year against Auburn when Marlon Humphrey popped that hamstring. Did a great job in that game. Started the SEC championship game. Did a fantastic job. Never stopped competing. Throughout fall camp, it looked like Trevon Diggs had that job nailed down, but Levi Wallace really competed hard, did a fantastic job when they brought him in the Florida State game, Gary, and he's been shut down over there. You talk about shut down, he's done just an unbelievable job, and we're not talking about average receivers. We're talking about 4 of the best receivers in the country that Ole Miss had. You're talking A.J. Brown. He was going up against DeMarcus Lodge quite a bit, who's a top-notch player too. So, again, what else can you say? He's just done an absolutely great job. 3
picks so far. He could be headed toward an all-conference type season. And again, Alabama's secondary also will have to pick it up. His backup, Trevon Diggs, who was actually the starter against Florida State, he hurt his foot in the game against Ole Miss. Not sure if he'll be able to play at A&M either. Well, coming up next on TITV, Alabama practices ahead of the game against A&M in College Station on Saturday. How the Crimson Tide is preparing to take on the 4-1 Aggies. We'll have that for you up next. And coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, as always, if you want to get through, it's a good idea to dial in early because those phone lines will get jammed. But folks want to talk Bama football, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen, or you can tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. Stay with us. Welcome back to our WVUA 23 studios inside the Digital Media Center in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Rodney Orr, Gary Harris, and I'm pretty confident you know who you are. Well, Alabama heads to College Station this Saturday for a 6:15 Central Time kickoff on ESPN. The Aggies, headed up, of course, by Coach Kevin Sumlin, are now 4-1 on the season and 2-0 in conference play. Both Sumlin and Alabama coach Nick Saban understand the challenges that come with an SEC matchup on a Saturday night with these two good teams.
This is by far, I think the strongest team that we played to this point all the way around, and certainly going to be a real challenge for us and a test for us in a division game on the road.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's always a challenge. Anything in this league is a challenge for our defensive front. That's what this is a line of scrimmage league, and they were challenged last week and rose to that. I mean, it's going to be every week. This league starts up front, and our guys get that.
It does start up front. I don't care with all the spread offenses, all the playmakers, it's still a line of scrimmage league. Rodney, A&M 4-1, 2-0 in SEC play. And I've said this on my radio show this week. You got to give them credit. They were up 44-10 on UCLA in the opener at the Rose Bowl with 3:17 to go in the third quarter. Lost the game 45-44. Came home, had 2 really poor performances against Nichols and against Louisiana Lafayette, but won. Then they went to Arlington, won in overtime against Arkansas. Then they rallied to beat South Carolina at home. So not only are they 4-1, they're 2-0 in the SEC when a lot of people thought they would fold.
Yeah, they could have easily folded. I mean, you know, it was already Kevin Sumlin was catching a lot of heat coming into the season. Then you blow that 34-point lead in Pasadena to UCLA. What was it, 3 minutes left in the third quarter?
Right.
They were up by 34. And, you know, how do you lose that game? Amazing. Lost it 45-44. But as you mentioned, they came back. They struggled against those two teams and then got into SEC play, pulled out an overtime win over Arkansas 50-43, and then last week beat South Carolina 24-17. And I mean, it's just a team that, as you mentioned, Gary, now they're 4-1 suddenly, and they're playing Alabama. And, you know, this is an athletic team. These are highly recruited players.
Highly recruited
players. Yeah, very, very highly recruited players. You know, outstanding players. Now, obviously, they have a freshman quarterback, but they have some good players around him on offense and defensively. John Chavis does an outstanding job, and their defense is much improved this year.
They can sack the quarterback.
Yeah, they can. Absolutely. They're number 2 in the country right now in sacks against Power 5 opponents. Behind Clemson, they have 16 sacks.
You know, and Kellen Mond, the freshman quarterback you mentioned, he's athletic. And on offense, they've got playmakers. And in Christian Kirk, let's be honest, Rodney, not only on offense, but in the kick and punt return game, he might be as talented a player as there is in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big-time player. Yeah. Alabama saw that 2 years ago out there when he took a punt back against them.
Yeah, and he had some big plays as a receiver last year. I know he caught at least one touchdown pass in that game that might have been the one that put them ahead early in the third quarter. But, you know, he's a big-time player. I mean, you look at the Arkansas game, he had a 100-yard kickoff return that kept him in the game. I mean, this guy can score in just about every way. They'll run him on reverses. Very, very dangerous. Certainly a big play guy.
Yeah, he is. And Alabama's a 26.5-point favorite. But this A&M team playing with confidence. Well, it's that time of the show where we show you our pick for this week's horrific play of the game, brought to you by Atrox.
And now, the horrific play of the game, brought to you by Atrox.
And this week's play comes in the second quarter. Ole Miss quarterback Shea Patterson drops back for the pass, and Minka Fitzpatrick, out of nowhere, gets the sack. A loss of 12 yards on the play for the Rebels. Isaiah Buggs would pick up the ball, but he was already down. Still, though, if you're an Ole Miss fan, that was one of many horrific plays. The whole game was horrific. Atrox has got to be loving that. Our horrific play of the game was brought to you, of course, by Atrox, the Southeast's largest all-indoor haunted attraction, the only one that features a different horror celebrity every weekend. Atrox is open now until October the 31st. Halloween closed Mondays and Tuesdays, except for Halloween week. For more information, head to Facebook and Twitter or visit atroxfactory.com. And next, we'll be welcoming those phone calls, emails, and tweets. They're rolling in. There's the information on your screen. Get through now. We'll be back to hear from you right here on TITV. The Alabama men's golf team will host the annual Jerry Pate National Intercollegiate on October 9th and 10th. That's next Monday and Tuesday at Old Overton Golf Course in Birmingham. The event is free to the public and will be an outstanding event. Some of the best collegiate golfers in the country will be there, including Alabama, which is good this year. They have already finished tied for first and second in their 2 tournaments so far. They're ranked 4th in the nation. Get out there next week to Old Overton and check it out. We're going to go right to the phone lines because they're lined up for us. Rod, you ready to go?
Sure.
All right, man. We got the Tomato Man, Sammy, up there in Walker County. Sammy, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Gary, Rodney, thanks, Gary and Rodney, and y'all do a fantastic job. I really appreciate the job y'all do. Just want to get that out there. But
okay. Thank you.
My comment on the offense is those big blowout wins. What I really enjoy about that, I get to see these young players, these backup players like Tua, to get to run the offense, and they get to. It's really going to help us. It's really great.
Absolutely, Sammy. Yeah, great point, Sammy. Rodney, he's right. And I know sometimes in the second half, the way Alabama's been wearing these teams out, the defense is a little tired. But still, from Tua to Najee Harris to those freshman wide receivers to the tight ends to the young offensive linemen, they've come in, and the offense has not missed a beat. It has been impressive to watch.
Oh, it's been extremely impressive to see guys, especially skilled players, when you see them come in, and even young offensive linemen, too. I mean, that might be the most difficult spot on the field when you're talking about guys coming in that are young and playing. And, you know, you had Jedrick Wills play. We've seen Alex Leatherwood play. We've seen a lot of other young players that don't have a lot of experience. Brandon Kennedy's come in as a second-team center. So a lot of guys really getting some experience, you know, Gary. And I said this last week, and I meant it. You know, that game last week against Vanderbilt reminded me a lot of the 70s because so many guys played, and then again against Ole Miss, you had so many guys. And I realize that Alabama hasn't had back-to-back 50-point-plus wins ever in SEC play, but you know, still seeing these young guys playing. I mean, I think Nick Saban, I think he's playing more players than he's ever played.
Yeah, it's fun to watch these young guys make plays. All right, let's go to Bessemer. Catch up with our pal John. John, what up, man?
Gary, what's going on, man?
You know it.
Man, what a game Saturday, man. I enjoyed that game. The reason I called, man, I heard Gene Stallings was in the hospital, and I want to ask you about Jay Barker's brother. Will he come to Alabama in another year or two later?
Okay, I think he's talking about Jay Barker's son, the quarterback at Spain Park. We got to ask about him last week. He's a young man to watch. There's no doubt about it. A lot like his dad. I mean, he's tough. He makes plays. As far as who he's going to be recruited by, I'm not sure, but he's a really good football player. We do know that.
Yeah, he's a very, very accurate, outstanding high school player.
All right, let's go to Fred, who's right here in T-Town. Fred, how are you, my friend? You're next up.
How y'all doing, guys?
Doing good, Fred.
I want to make kind of like two statements.
Okay.
If Coach Saban is the standard for coaches and what he's doing to us here in Tuscaloosa, a lot of coaches going to be fired. but the thing is that do you think Alabama is the best team for talent-wise, can plug people in here and there, out of position or whatever, in college football, and I know probably in the SEC, but in college football?
All right, Fred. Yeah, first on Saban, you're right, and it's already caused a lot of panic firings and hirings. That's why the coaching roster looks like what it looks like in the SEC right now, because everybody's trying to keep up with Nick Saban. Rodney, as far as the roster and the team, if I don't have a vote, if I did, I'd vote Alabama number one. Clemson's really good. Wouldn't be shocked if we saw those two teams again, but I still think overall, top to bottom, Alabama's the best football team in the country, the most talented roster in the country, the best coach team in the country. Alabama's number one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're really starting to look like that. When you look at this offense and the things that Brian Dable's doing with all of those weapons, and then you look at Jeremy Pruitt, the great job he always does on the defensive side, of course, with Coach Saban, and you look at both those, and, hey, the special teams are playing really well also. So this is a well-rounded team, Fred.
All right, we are going to take a time out here on the show, but we'll be back with more phone calls, emails, and tweets right after this. Welcome back. We got a tweet sent in from Red Elephant 2014, who is Mark. Gary, if Jeremy Pruitt leaves for Tennessee or Ole Miss, who would we get that can keep our defense top notch? Well, Rodney, if Jeremy Pruitt were to leave for another job, they got some good coaches right here on the staff. Tosh LaPoy might be a name to watch, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's one of the best young coaches in America. I mean, when you look at what he can do, not only as a recruiter, but he's really developed into an outstanding position coach, and I think he would be, if Alabama had an opening at some point, he would certainly be a top candidate.
All right, let's go back to the phone. Stephen is with us in Northport. Hey, Stephen, how are you?
Pretty good. How are y'all doing tonight?
Very well, thank you.
Hey, I've got a question for Rodney. I watch a lot of the SEC network, and they showed last couple of days the recruiting classes for this next coming year, and Alabama wasn't in the top 10. Can you fill me in on just where we're standing on our recruits?
Well, Stephen, first of all, let me say this. Those ratings right now, I mean, they're totally worthless, and I'll tell you why. It's October. Alabama's got like 12 commitments. They've still got 10 or 12 spots they're going to fill. I think when all's said and done, you're going to be very, very happy if you're an Alabama fan, because Alabama's going to recruit extremely well. They have a top 3 or 4 class. Now, they may not be number one this year, but they're going to have a great class. There's no question about that.
Yeah, they're just being really, really patient because they only got 22 to give. All right, BT is here with us in Tuscaloosa. Hey, BT, what's up, man?
Good morning, Gary and Rodney. How about y'all, Rodney?
Very well. What you got, BT?
Gary, give us an update on the players that's coming back and on the games, please.
All right, BT. Well, most of the guys that got hurt in that Florida State game are back, except for Terrell Lewis and Christian Miller, both of whom are expected to miss the season. Now, the good news there is, Rodney, there may be a chance they could get back late in the year and play. We mentioned the 2 guys that got hurt against Ole Miss, Trayvon Diggs and Deshaun Hand, probably going to miss this upcoming game, but hopefully they won't be out too long.
Yeah, I think that's great news on Deshaun Hand. I mean, Gary, I thought when we saw him carted off, it did not look good at all. I was a little bit afraid his senior year might be over with. So I thought that was great news that it's an NCL strain. It's not good news, but it is great news in a way.
Yeah, BT, Center Bradley Bozeman, a little bit slowed in practice this week, but he's expected to play on Saturday. All right, let's go to Birmingham and talk with Reg. Reg, welcome into the program.
Hi, I'm going to make 3 quick questions. Now, before I forget it, I'd like to know the dial number on the radio that I can get your radio program and what time it comes on each day.
Okay.
And 2, do you think that the SEC, Alabama, running all over everybody, do you think that the teams in the SEC are inferior to what most other teams are? Have we lost some power in the SEC? And 3, the coach is being investigated. Baker, I think is his name. Have you heard any?
Okay, yeah, let's run them down for you, Reg. Thanks for the call. First of all, our radio show's on Tide 102.9 FM and 100.9 FM every day, 9 to 11 a.m. You can also go to Tide1029.com and stream it, or you can get the new Tide 1029 app and put it on your phone. Rodney, as far as the SEC, I do think outside of Alabama, maybe 3 or 4 of the teams, it is not a really good league right now, but it's cyclical, and it's always going to be a good football league, but there are some teams this year that, quite frankly, aren't good.
Well, and they've had so many coaching changes.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
you
that
look at
affects
LSU,
them.
you look at Ole Miss. Yeah. So certainly I think when you look at all the coaching transition that's taken over the last few years, that's hurt. And on Kobe Baker, the basketball assistant operations guy, he resigned last week. Haven't heard anything else on what's going on there. Alabama's practicing, and they expect to have a good season in basketball. Thank you, Reg. And we'll be back with more right after this, including an update on Gene Stallings. Stay with us. Well, former Alabama head coach Gene Stallings suffered a heart attack over the weekend. He is now resting comfortably at Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas. He had a stent put in. His family is with him. He's 82 years old, but this is a tough man. He is expected to bounce back from this heart attack. We wish Coach Stallings, of course, the best. And welcome back to TITV. It is prediction time. Rodney, Alabama and A&M, the Tide about anywhere from a 24, 25, 26-point favorite in this game. How do you see it? It's a lot of points.
It is.
Oof. Going into Kyle Field, I tell you, listen, Texas A&M, what would this, a win over Alabama, do for their program? I mean, they've really turned it around the last 4 weeks. They've got a lot of highly recruited players. They're playing well, but Alabama's playing really well, too, and not turning the ball over. I think that's the key. Alabama 38-13.
You know, I'm with you, Rod. A&M's got it back together a little bit, but this is a juggernaut right now with Alabama. I'm going to ride this team. I like Bama big. Let's take a look at my prediction, 45-17. You know, they took care of Ole Miss. I think they'll take care of the Aggies as well. Well, thanks for watching tonight. Our beautiful shirts and ties, as always, provided by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear. Go by and see the courteous staff in person or shop online at locker-room.biz. Get you some of that original elephant wear or some of their other great men's wardrobe items. This is a great place to shop. We love it, man. I love walking around with original elephant wear. Everybody says, that's a great looking shirt. Get you to the Locker Room and get you one. Okay, that's going to do it for the program. You can catch a replay tonight at 10:30, or you can catch it anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr and our entire TITV staff, I'm Gary Harris. Have a great night. We'll talk to you again next week right here on Tider Insider Television.